President Carter often would speak about Mrs. Carter as the inspiration for his human rights policy. She is very justice-minded. She's very justice-minded, very, very keen observer of what's happening. I've been with her deployed for an election, for example, where she noticed something and would say, well, how about this thing that happened over here? That wasn't so great, was it? And whereas he may want to be the peacemaker and not dwell on that, Mrs. Carter would want to really face some of the more difficult challenges and to address them head on. And during his presidency, she was very active. She would take notes in important meetings. He asked her to travel to Latin America as his emissary. And in fact sat down with Latin American dictators and challenged them on their human rights practices. This was not expected and took many of them by surprise, but she was prepared. She always would go to meetings prepared and was in her very gentle way would make the case for whatever the issue was, whether it was peace, human rights in Latin America, or the importance of protecting people with mental health and advancing the goals of mental health in this country and globally. So she is a totally equal partner to him, has been always an equal partner, and she's always there sitting and taking notes and advising and giving her own thoughts that really helped him become the great leader that he is.
To emphasize how important Mrs. Carter was in all of this. She would attend the meetings, she would keep the notes, and even when they would go bird watching, she's the one that kept the life list of the birds that they had seen. But more than that, I think when we went to Thailand and looked at refugee camps, I realized how powerful she could be, because her trip there suddenly unleashed money for refugee camps in Thailand. And she has continued to have that role. In mental health, this is a field that's very fragmented in the sense that people become interested in mental health because someone in the family has a problem. But then they may be interested in that problem. So it may be bipolar, it may be depression, it may be something else. But people now are competing for a relatively small amount of money in mental health, and so they work against each other. What Mrs. Carter was able to do was to bring people together on problems that went across the mental health field. For instance, why don't we have the same attention to mental health as we do to physical health? How can we get insurance companies to cover mental health problems? And so she had a whole conference on that. She had one on stigma, which goes across the field, and how to reduce stigma. She had another one on how mental health problems are depicted on television and in movies, and was able to get Hollywood producers involved in changing that image. And then she took her interest in mental health from the domestic interest to global interest. And what she's done in Liberia to get mental health workers working with people who were survivors of the Ebola outbreak of 2014 is really classic. So it's these two people working together that became such a force in what was done in Africa in global health.
I think her steady influence, advice to him, presence with him on all of those trips to Africa has been important as well as an example to other first ladies in the countries where we visit. For example, for somebody that it's not just the principal who was actually president, but his wife who's here also helping with this problem.